I'd like to spend a few minutes and talk about the storytelling options in Kumu. This is an element of the storytelling in Kumu learning module in Keeley. When you create a presentation in Kumu, it's actually relative to the project that you create the presentation in. It's not simply for the map that you may have been looking at when you created or initiated the start of the presentation. Remember that for a project you can have multiple maps and multiple perspectives built on a single data set. That presentation that you develop, or one or more presentations, can have aspects of all of the different maps that are part of that project. You access the presentation feature either here by presentation or on the settings panel, which is the same settings panel you reach by clicking down here and clicking here for presentation. That shows you any presentations that you may have already created for this particular project and the option to create a new presentation. The URL that's used or fabricated for a presentation is your username plus kumu.io / and the name that you provide for the presentation. So if I create a new one and I simply call it this test and tell it to submit, it then takes me to the presentation creation interface, uses that title that I gave it as the title for the presentation, and on this page I have the option to change the title or add a subtitle. And a subtitle is sort of a understatement because you have access to the entire markdown formatting options, and you can actually write paragraphs here if you need to. And then you have the option to supply a URL for an image. If you supply that, it will cover the initial first page for the presentation, and we'll show some examples of that probably in the next video. Now, to actually create the presentation, you come over here and you click plus, and it adds the first slide to the presentation, and it shows you the page that you were on when you created or initiated the development of the presentation. So it shows you the map profile page and the map. And the options that you then have available is that you can use this slide, which is a map slide. You can also create a text slide, an image slide, or an embed slide. The text slide is simply your title and whatever text you would like to include. The image slide is a URL that you provide, and then you tell it whether or not you want the entire image to be displayed or you want it to expand the smallest segment, smallest dimension of the image to cover the entire space. You provide a title and a caption for this. And for an embed slide, you go ahead and provide a URL of some HTTPS reference. It might be a YouTube video, a Vimeo. I insert a lot of Insight Maker models and then indicate whether or not that should be displayed as auto or in a full screen format when it's presented. So let's go back to the map slide for the moment. I then have the options to do whatever it is that I choose on this particular slide. So I could actually simply select this and then say zoom to fit. So this now ends up being the first slide in this presentation. And I go ahead and then say, all right, I want a new presentation. And what it does is it gives me a duplicate of whatever was on the previous slide. I then click back here and say, okay, what I really want now is this loop. I want to zoom to fit. Now notice it's providing the comments that are attached to this loop label at the moment. And then I go ahead and add another slide, which is a duplicate of this slide. And what I want now to display is this particular loop. So I now have 3 slides. Now you can change the order of the slides simply by moving them around. You can click on one and delete it if you care to. And then on the final slide, what I want is all of this, but I want to write my own summary and add this is my summary for the presentation. And let me go ahead and zoom this to fit. And then I can go ahead and cancel or save it. Now, if I save the changes, what it does is it presents me the presentation. And let me go ahead and edit the title, subtitle, some subtitle, title text, save. So now I have a quick view of the presentation that I've created, and now I can go ahead and simply publish it. And I have the option to be able to make the presentation public or to make it private. I can add, if it's private, I can add a password, and then I go ahead and click on it, and it shows me what the URL. And I publish it, and here it is. So here's the URL for it. So if I click on this URL and copy it, and come over here, and simply paste it in. Here is the presentation that was just created. I start the presentation. Here's the first slide, second slide, third slide, and then the summary that I wrote for it. So you can use whatever aspect of the models that you want. If I go back in here and tell it that I want to edit the slides on a particular slide, if I went back to this slide, if there were multiple maps, you could select different maps from the presentation and take pieces of the information from different maps and add them to the presentation. You also can select any portion of this that you want. You don't have to have all of it, so that I could select this. Well, I could select just this. Well, I could if I go back to here first. Come on. If I select just this, then that's the piece that'll be part of the presentation. If I go ahead and select this, I mean, I could add that to the presentation. So there's a lot of options. Whatever part of the map you present or you select and have displayed is what will end up as part of this. So I could select this, and I could come down here to focus and say I want 2 degrees, and it would show all of the ones that were 2 degrees away from the one that I selected. So there's a multitude of options in terms of selecting the individual components of a map to have it displayed. So my point is that it works very well for presenting or unfolding a model as a story to convey the meaning of that model to someone else. So I think it's a very nice compact presentation environment, which works very well for storytelling. And they've done it with 4 different kinds of slides. The map slide probably being the one that you use the most often, but the text slide, image slide, and embed slide are the other 3 types that seem to make sense and seem to fit with the model. And you should find it very easy to create presentations in this environment. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye.